Hey guys, for another edition of my Obscure Cars from Around the World series, today I have for you 10 obscure Australian cars. There's a lot of really interesting ones on this list that I thought were really cool when I did the research for this video. With all that being said, if you enjoy this video, be sure to like and subscribe, and let's get into it. Bullet Roadster. The Bullet Roadster is an Australian sports car that is based on the well-known NA Mazda MX-5 Miata. Production of the Bullet ran from 1999 to 2009 and was very limited in quantity, with only about 1,000 units being made in total. There were a lot of modifications made to the Miata that made it a Bullet, with those things being things like a fiberglass clamshell hood, chassis reinforcements, a limited slip differential, and new Brembo brakes. One really interesting feature about this car is that while the stock Mazda Miata used an inline-4 motor, the Bullet used various V8 engines, including a 4.6-liter Rover V8 and a Toyota 1UZ FE V8. You could also opt for a supercharged version of the Bullet, which was known as the Bullet SS. The SS model made a whopping 429 horsepower and 424 pound-foot of torque, as opposed to the regular NA Miata's 133 horsepower and 114 pound-foot of torque. Overall, this is a very cool limited production V8 sports roadster that came out of Australia that I'm sure many of you didn't know existed. Joss JT1. The Joss JT1 is a one-off prototype supercar that was introduced in 2004 and never made it to production. It was created by Matthew Thomas, who worked as a clay modeler for Ford. The car was first introduced at the 2004 Melbourne Motor Show. It was powered by a 6.8-liter overhead valve V8 engine, which made 446 horsepower and 440 pound-foot of torque, which was sent to the rear wheels via a 5-speed manual transmission. It was also said to have a 0 to 60 time of around 3.6 seconds and could go on to a top speed of 186 miles per hour. It used a carbon fiber monocoque chassis and had an interior similar to that of a race car. Although there was a lot of excitement behind this project, it never caught the attention of investors and eventually fizzled out. Sometime around 2011, a new test car was introduced, the JP1. This car ultimately met the same fate as the JT1 and was similarly never produced. Giocattolo Group B. The Giocattolo Group B was a prototype sports car that was based on a heavily modified Alfa Romeo Sprint body. This car had an extensive use of Kevlar and carbon fiber in this body to help keep it lightweight. The car originally only used Alfa's 2.5-liter V6 engine, but eventually moved on to using a 5-liter modified Holden V8 engine. It was planned to be made in race car form, as well as in homologation spec road car form, although this car would ultimately never go into production due to very high expenses. Although there is very limited information about this car online, I still figured it was a notable entry for this list. Bolwell Nagari. The Bolwell Nagari is an Australian sports car. It is currently in its second generation, but for now, we'll just be talking about the first generation. This generation was produced from 1970 to 1974 and was available in coupe and convertible forms. The engines used were Ford's 302 cubic inch 5-liter Windsor V8 and Ford's 302 and 351 cubic inch Cleveland V8. The only transmission option was a 4-speed manual. These are actually very rare cars, with only about 100 coupes and 18 convertibles produced over its 4-year production run. As I mentioned prior, Bolwell is still making the Nagari today, with its second-gen form being produced from 2009 to present. Chrysler Valiant Charger. The Chrysler Valiant Charger is an Australian muscle car that is based on the US Chrysler A-body platform. It was created to be a shorter wheelbase, 2-door coupe version of the Chrysler Valiant sedan. It was only available in 2-door hardtop coupe form and was front-engine, rear-wheel drive. It was introduced within the VH series of the Valiant sedan and would be produced as a variant throughout the subsequent VJ, VK, and CL series. This was an extremely popular car in Australia, and at one point, Valiant Chargers ended up totaling 80% of all Valiant production. There were only two basic engines that were used for these cars, with those being based on the Chrysler Hemi 6 engine and some that were based on the Chrysler LA V8 engine. Since I've always liked muscle cars, this one is probably my favorite entry on this list. Lightburn Zeta Sports. The Sports is the convertible version of the Lightburn Zeta microcar, which was also produced in sedan and utility versions. The Zeta Sports, however, was introduced in 1964 and was based on the Meadows Frisky microcar. Its body was made of fiberglass, and the car weighed just 882 pounds. It had all-round drum brakes and ran on 10-inch wheels. Powering this car was a 498cc two-cylinder, two-stroke engine that made only 21 horses, which were sent to the front wheels via a 4-speed manual transmission. These are very rare vehicles, with just 48 units being produced in total. Mazda Roadpacer. The Mazda Roadpacer is a full-size sedan that was produced by Mazda from 1975 to 1977. The car was based on the HJ and HX generations of the Holden Premier sedan. To make this car, Holden would ship Premiers to Japan without transmissions or engines, and Mazda would fit them with this 1.3-liter 13B Wankel rotary engine. This engine made 133 horsepower and 137 pound-foot of torque, and came paired with a 3-speed automatic transmission. With these, Mazda would also add new features to the car, with some of those being the option of a split bench seat or seats with a center console in the middle, a new central locking system and stereo that could be controlled from the front or back seats, and a dictation system. In total, only 800 Roadpacers were made. Although this car was only sold in Japan, it does have very Australian roots, and that's why I chose it to be an entry on this list. Adayer Sportif. The Adayer Sportif is a very rare coupe version of the new at the time Holden VH Commodore. These cars were produced only from 1981 to 1984 and were custom built by Adayer, with the main selling point being that they were two-door Commodores. They were marketed as sleek, luxurious European-style tourers with features like gold pinstriping, a deep pile carpet, and an embossed Adayer panel on the back in between the taillights. The engine used was the regular VH Commodore's 4.2-liter V8, which made 134 horsepower and 198 pound-foot of torque. All cars are believed to have been painted in a charcoal black-like color, and only around 11 units were made in total. Overall, a pretty cool and rare car. FPV F6. The FPV, or Ford Performance Vehicles F6, is a high-performance version of the Australian Ford Falcon sedan. This car was produced in ute and sedan forms from 2004 to 2014. Some of the standard features you could get with this sports sedan were reverse parking sensors, Bluetooth mobile phone connectivity, a premium audio system with a 7-inch color display, and a 4-way electrically adjustable driver's seat. It also got new features like graphite-colored 5-spoke 19-inch alloy wheels, projector headlamps, FPV floor mats, Brembo cross-drilled and slotted rear rotors, and 4-piston Brembo brakes at the front. The engines used in this car were the 4.0-liter Barra 270T inline 6, which made 362 horsepower and 406 pound-foot of torque, and the 4.0-liter Barra 310T inline 6, which made 416 horsepower and 417 pound-foot of torque. The transmissions used were two different 6-speed manuals and a 6-speed automatic. This is a very interesting high-performance sedan that came out of Australia that I personally wish was available in the US. HSV Avalanche. The HSV Avalanche is an all-wheel drive crossover SUV that was produced by Holden's performance brand, Holden Special Vehicles, between 2003 and 2005. HSV also made a double cab pickup version of this vehicle called the XUV, which had pretty much all of the same stuff. This vehicle was built in 2 series over the course of its production. It was exclusively fitted with a 5.7-liter LS1 V8 engine that made 360 horsepower and 350 pound-foot of torque. This is a pretty interesting vehicle that I didn't know much about until I started researching for this video. And those are 10 obscure Australian cars for you guys. As always, be sure to let me know in the comments what you would like to see next on this channel, and if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.